Hello again, welcome back. This live stream is coming to you thanks to the Ithaca Trumpet Studio, who specifically requested this otherwise pretty popular topic that I have covered before, but I'll cover it again, and that is school auditions. And it's our audition day tomorrow at ECU, and so my students might benefit from this at least a little bit. If your auditions are further out, then you can do a little bit more before you get there. But school auditions are a little bit different than professional auditions for lots of reasons. But if you follow all these tips and tricks and whatever that we're going to talk about today, they will help you for professional auditions down the line as well. And the more success that you have doing your school auditions, the more confidence you're going to have going into those professional auditions, or just auditions for other schools later, right? When you go to grad school, when you go to doctoral school. And so these should help you with everything. It's not going to be a long one today, but if people do come on and want to ask questions, I would love to do a Q&A and address some of your specific concerns, although I don't know if the people who asked me to do this are able to watch it live. So if you are here, Thomas and friends, thank you for the request, and I'm glad that I could accommodate. Please come on and ask me questions and tell me things that you're concerned about. But okay, I'll walk you through basically the things that I think are important that I've thought of in the hour that since you asked me, and we'll go through. So the first steps are leading up to the practice. If you have weeks or even months before an audition, there's a lot of things you can do in a certain way to help that time go really well for you, right? The time of your audition, and so. First of all, obviously, you need to learn the music really well. That seems like I shouldn't have to say that, but some people don't really practice that way. They practice by reading the music over and over again, but they're not really learning the music, right? They're playing the music, and so they need the music in front of them to be able to play any part of it, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if you really know something, then you basically have it memorized, right? And so therefore, you're working on the expression of it. You're not really working on the fingerings or something, right? So you need to know it really, really well. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. A lot of chunking, a lot of singing, ways that we've talked about before and that we'll get into. But when you actually want to practice for the audition, in other words, I'm in the practice room and I've been working on stuff, and now it's time. I've done my warm up. But it's not the audition day. I just want to get a good run through. What I would do is practice little small chunks of things that you think might go poorly and just get them kind of ready. And that might mean some slow practice. That might mean chunking the way that we do it. It could mean a lot of things. But you work on those little spots that you think might not go so well. And then you do a full run through. You just play through it once, right? That way you can find out what spots might not go well on a different day, right? And so a lot of people find that different things go wrong every day. And so those all become the spots that you want to kind of just look at for a second before you go in the room that day, let's say. And also the parts that need the most practice up until then. Let's see, you can also sing a lot more than you play, because you want to engineer something, and that's kind of where I'm trying to get into. You want to engineer a scenario in which you have never played the music with mistakes in it. And now that seems impossible, but we do it all the time on this channel, where it's a matter of how you start. What can you do at first that's absolutely perfect? And it's okay to make mistakes. I'm not saying don't make them. I'm saying don't build them into your practice. So for instance, I can do some demonstration here and sort of maybe make this a little bit more interactive if I move this sheet. So okay. I've got in front of me the Charlier book. It's the old Charlier book with different numbers. So I'll tell you what numbers it is. But let me find something. There's plenty of Charliers that I don't know at all. So let me find one that I don't know. I'm going to sight read for you, which is usually a bad idea on live stream. But I want to show you what I mean by that you've never made a mistake in practice. This book goes up in interval. So in other words, you do the one that's based on fourths and then the one that's based on fifths. So I'm afraid if I keep going, it's going to be worse for me. But chromatic. Oh, this is a Wagner one. I don't think I want to play that. Okay, there's one that I looked at like very partially. And that's, oh, it's almost there. The fifth one, I think. Yeah, and a lot of people know this one. I've not ever really worked on it, but let me put this up a little bit, excuse me. I'm going to sight read some of it for you. And you can see, if I just read it at tempo, right, it's not going to be very good because it's a complicated etude. Now, some of the parts might go just fine. And I looked at the whole first page. I haven't really looked at the second page at all. The rhythms don't seem that hard, but if I'm not going to give myself any time to look at it. I'm just going to read it, and then we can talk about what I should have done to engineer, to basically design my practice around always doing some level of it perfectly. And that's going to give me great confidence when I actually perform or do an audition, which is what I might use an etude for. So here we go. If I can find my mute button, there it is. This has all been too quiet for you. Now we're talking some real levels. Yes. Okay. And how about that? I don't think this one matters. Okay. Sorry about that this whole time, but now I can find my mute button and we'll play some of this etude. So you can hear how, like, that's never gonna amount to much. I'll do it again though, because that's how most people practice, and I want to show you why this isn't a good way to do it. I'm gonna just play it at tempo again, and I might do a little better, but I'm gonna make more and different and the same mistakes because I haven't done anything. I'm just reading it, right? And this is what I was talking about before. You don't want to practice this way. Here we go again. So it was a little bit better, but it's never going to get much better than that. I'm always just going to still be right on the edge of like, oh my gosh, what's the next thing? And I'm not even sure that I played everything properly ever, like any of it, right? Because I'm just reading with my eyes and I'm not trying to think about what that really sounds like. I was lucky to even get the C sharp at the beginning because it's in the key signature, right? Because it's not marked in that bar. I started near the end of the etude. This is number 14 in this Charlier book. Almost guaranteed it's not number 14 in the other Charlier book that you probably own. But okay, so just checking my levels. It looks a lot better now. This is when people might start to actually pay attention anyway. So what should I do instead? Well, what we said already, learn the music well. Okay, well, how do I do that? Small chunks, right? I'm going to look at what level can I do perfectly right now? And an easy way to start thinking about this is, okay, well, can I just play the first note, right? Right? With the right style, it's got an accent on it, it's forte. And then you might say, well, I can probably play the first three notes, right? But okay, what level of perfection? Well, is it in tune? Does it have a good sound, right? That's the stuff that matters. So let me try that. I'm just going to play three notes this time. So in pretty quick time, we've gotten where we've got a pretty good sound. Did you notice I missed the first one? So I couldn't even play one note at first, right? And then I didn't quite like the intonation of it, and then as I tried to control the intonation, didn't quite like the sound that came out. So I did it over and over until I got it really perfectly, and then I got it as close to perfect as I feel I should a couple of times. And then, okay, now I can move on. The first time I played it, I got the wrong rhythm in the next bar, but we can fix that now. And I'm just going to sing, because these are hard intervals, and I don't want to play the trumpet. Because as soon as I start playing the trumpet, I'm building habits. But up until then, I'm just kind of like feeling it out. I'm trying to figure it out. So I can go slow. I can use all these different tools that we know, right? I can go slow. I can sing. I can do the fingerings while I do that. And I can take it even out of time. So it's so slow that there is no time. I'm just practicing the intervals. And I can even cheat a little bit because there's no cheating in music. I can kind of... Is that a tritone? I think so. Yeah, see, and I can check that way. Even though that is kind of playing, I'm not really playing the piece, so I'm not really building habits based on the piece. I might be building some not so great trumpet habits by just kind of tooting out notes, but generally you can get away with some of that because it's not the way you really play, right? So let's do that. Let's and it's one thumb ba-dum. That's hard to sing. Bum ba-dum ba-dum bum. So I'm going to spend a lot of time doing this way when I'm learning the piece the first time, because I don't want to make mistakes that I build in. I don't want to practice mistakes. I want to practice perfection, right? And that's going to give me, like I said, a huge boost of confidence as I go into the audition room, or if it's your recital or whatever. This is all the same stuff, right? So, okay, small chunks, great. Sing. My rule is, even after you know the piece, you should sing it maybe 10 times and play it once. Because if you can sing it really well and sing on pitch with even like a trumpet tone, then you're gonna have confidence for the one playthrough you do in the pitches and the rhythms and the fingerings, right? Because you're going to do the fingerings every time. And then that playthrough is going to go really well as it can. And you'll only be dealing, anything that went wrong would just be a little physical thing that you're probably wanting to deal with in your routine, in your warm-up, not so much in the actual piece. It's more than likely it's going to be something that's physically difficult for you to do. And that's okay. Those things are going to happen. You're not going to be able to play everything perfectly just because you adopted a philosophy. But to the best of your ability, you don't want to be building in habits, bad habits that you can play better than. You just chose not to, right? So I could keep playing this, I guess. Let's see if we have anything else on the sheet. Well, once you know something, so I know the beginning of this fairly well. So let's say, yeah, I'm practicing this for over, I don't know, I looked at it one night last week. But let's say I'm practicing it over a couple of weeks, and I look at it once or twice a week. So that's probably about where I have this to me right now. In other words, I know it, kind of, not well enough yet. I know where the hard spots are in it, and I can get it audition ready probably by the end of today, let's say, right? So I'm just going to use the beginning of the same etude if you're following along. And like I said, I know this one better. Let me give you a sample of it so that you know where I'm at with it. Oh, in fact, better than that. Let me show you how I would do it at this level of knowledge. So I want to play it through. I want to practice it. So do I do a playthrough and find out all the mistakes I'm going to make, right? Therefore making them, ingraining them, practicing mistakes. Or do I practice it? So now it's not a run through, but I'm practicing. The answer is both. You do one and then you do the other. So of course I want to practice the parts that might not go perfectly first. And I know where those spots are because they probably didn't go well the last time. I might have even circled them, right? So for me, those are the triplet spots. And there's one really hard lick later on that I'm going to have to totally tear down again. But that's what I need to do in order to have a chance at a better run later. And I don't want to be doing run-throughs until I've really practiced all the licks adequately and gotten them up to tempo, because I don't need to do that, right? I'm not ready for a run-through. So here we go. I'll show you the spots. Then we'll try to do a playthrough of at least a section, and then I can talk to you about more of the audition tips that are related to it. So you can see, I'm just singing, playing, trying to get it in my ear, in my fingers, and I want the pattern, I want to get the pattern down. Excuse me while I clean my glasses off. That's also a distraction. Don't want any distractions in the, whatever might distract you from concentrating well. And at the end of the day, after my first day of school, I'm not concentrating super well, which is why I'm all over the place. But anyway, so is that ready to do a run through? Not really, right? I haven't played it like smoothly in time at tempo, right? So I need to get that, and I need to get it in context. So I can do some chunking. Let me see if I can, in the next 30 seconds, let me see if I can get it in working order. And if I can't, I'm not really ready for a playthrough. I'm going to do it anyway today for you, but if I was a really disciplined practicer, I would continue to practice that spot because that's what needs work, right? Anyway, let's see if maybe I don't have to do it wrong if I get it right now. So I notice I'm rushing a little bit. You can probably hear my foot tap because I'm wearing shoes today in the studio. I usually don't because I have wood floors and it travels through the boom. So my mics are not isolated, but anyway, it's fine. So I'm trying to tap and I'm feeling myself kind of get ahead of my own foot tapping even. So that's something else I should consider. And now might be a good time to talk about what is important about these things, right? What things should I be working on? Well, obviously I want it perfect, but what's that mean? That's nothing. That's an opinion. What is perfection? In this case, think about, okay, who are you auditioning for, right? Who's behind that screen if it's even a blind audition? Usually it's the band directors, the orchestra director. If it's a jazz audition, jazz band directors, right? The combo instructors. It might be the trumpet teacher. It might be the whole brass section. Different colleges and universities do it different ways. And so, you need to think about what those people are listening for, right? Obviously, the main three that every audition, what I call it the 3 T's, right? It's tone, the sound, your sound, right? Time, which is both meaning like good solid time, and also rhythm, right? Those are linked inextricably, because if you play with bad rhythm, your time is bad. If you play with bad time, you're not playing the right rhythms anyway, right? So, so tone, time, and intonation, and style. Those are the 3 T's. So tone, you want to sound, well, what is the group, right? Is it a wind ensemble? Is it a wind ensemble and orchestra, like they're both back there? And you want to have a nice, big, weighty orchestral sound, a very big, wide sound. Some people say dark. I actually think it's brighter when people say that, so I don't know what they're hearing exactly, but I think we use those color words improperly sometimes anyway. But an orchestral sound, you should sound like Tom Hooton if you can, right? That's what those adjudicators are listening for, and so you need to have that kind of sound. Your time just needs to be as good or better than theirs, right? That seems unfair, but there are some ways to sort of push people into thinking that your time is good even when it's not, and maybe I'll figure out how to talk about that. But your time has to be solid, like a metronome, right? And your rhythm impeccable. And then intonation, or tuning if you really want to keep them 3 T's. Intonation, I think, is funnier. You got to be in tune with yourself. If you're playing with a pianist, which is pretty rare for beginning of the year auditions, but if you're playing with a pianist, in tune with them, right? But they don't want to deal with intonation issues in their ensemble, right? When they're conducting, they want you to just be good. a non-problem, because they're going to have some problems somewhere. So they would like for it to not be you. And that's what they're looking for, right? And then the style is the secret fourth T. It has to be the right style. And that seems like, oh, well, how do I even know? Listen to recordings, right? If you don't know what the Charlier etudes sound like, you should listen to music that's contemporaneous to the Charlier book, right? You should listen to what French music sounded like then. And maybe a little bit earlier and a little bit later to see, is Charlier ahead of his time or is he behind? You know, is it supposed to sound like Baroque music? You know, it depends on the piece but you can almost always find a recording that you can listen to and make sure, you know, in this case, I'm sort of double dotting things a lot, but if I do it too much, then the triplets sound funny. And so I don't want my dotted 16th 32nd note to sound like a triplet. And so I'm double dotting it a little bit, right? Just to make a separation there. That way the triplets sound really even. That's both a time and a style thing. So you need to think about, like, what are they listening for? And one really big, like, it's easy to get lost in the weeds of like, well, let me listen to my intonation, and now your tone's bad. Oh, let me listen to the tone. Well, you know, tone can cover up a lot of things. So you want to stick, tone is sort of the first one, right? The biggest one. Because if you have bad intonation, but your tone is really good, some people will just hear how good your sound is and they won't really notice. They will notice your bad time, but sometimes they will forgive a little bit of, you know, and the second thing, really the top thing, but tone and this are almost equal, that your musical intent, if you have really strong musical intent that you're going somewhere with the phrase and you sound really good, most people can't hear past that. So that's a really great, like, even if you don't have perfect intonation, play musically and with a beautiful sound, and you will convince a lot of people that you did the other things too. So that's the way that you want to think about practicing, right? If I don't sound good, I'm shooting myself in the foot before I've even started. So I need to start with that, and that comes from fundamentals. But you still have to apply it, right? So let me play some more. And we've worked on this passage a little bit. I don't want to practice a mistake, so I'm going to work it out again, and then I'm going to try to do a run through of like the first big like chunk, the first 3 lines or so. Okay, great. So we found another section that didn't go well for me, and I almost kind of could have anticipated it, but it was an interval thing more than it was a rhythm thing. I saw the rhythm and I was like, yeah, I can do that. Thum thum ba-dum 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 be-dum. And if I'd known I was going to do this stream this way, I would have circled, or I would have put an X at the end of that line, because that was problematic for me. That was a problem for me to practice the first time I played it. I just couldn't hear. It's actually the D. It's the fourth. Everything's fifths, right? So when I go up a fourth, my ear doesn't want to hear it, especially since we just did a fifth from that same note, right? So I need to practice it, right? But we only made one mistake. We got every other detail pretty much on the money. So that would count as, if I played like that in an audition, I might advance. I might do well in a school audition anyway, right? If you make a mistake in a professional audition, that's that bad, you won't make it. But I played with a good sound. I played with musical intent. I played with the right style. I played most of the right notes. I played, I think, with mostly good time and intonation. And so that would be that. I would be a good candidate for the wind ensemble, let's say, because that's what the wind ensemble director wants to have in his group. Or maybe the orchestra, maybe the orchestra conductor, she wants the sound that I had, even though I'm not playing orchestral literature, right? So I'm convinced, I'm trying to be a convincing candidate. I might not win, I might not be the best one, but I need to be convincing. If I have a bad sound or out of tune or out of time or play too many wrong notes or certainly wrong rhythms, then I'm a problem for them to avoid. And that's kind of the perspective you want to think about. So, okay. I'm not going to bore you with more like how I practice, because that's every stream that I do. And maybe I'll just leave it on at the end and you guys can watch me practice if you want. But let's talk about on the day of, right? So what are you going to do on the day of? Well, first things first, you're not going to play a lot that day. You want your freshest, best chops. You still want to warm up, but I would say do a small warm up. I meant to actually, maybe I can find it, or maybe it's not here. The Arbens book, the other Arbens book, there's a second Arbens book that's in 3 volumes, and the third volume, I believe, has how to prepare a contest solo in 1 month, I think it is. Yeah. And so 30 days, and it tells you exactly what to practice every day to win a contest, a solo contest, which is kind of what you're doing here, right? So I'll see if I can find that at the end. But okay, so do a small warm-up on the day of, right? Up until then, you're doing your daily routine, you're getting in shape. As you get close to it, you might taper that a little bit so that you're a little bit more fresh. Just do a couple of run-throughs, put it away. But on the day of, you want to do a very small warm-up. I would do something like this. I'm going to do a lot of resting. All I'm doing is I'm trying to do like Clark number 1. I'm doing some lip bends. I was just trying to get a nice poo attack at the beginning. I'm just setting stuff up, but I'm doing it really quickly, so I'm not playing a lot. And then, like I said, I'm going to rest. I would do some color change stuff because that helps me get my aperture set up right. But if you don't do that normally, don't worry about it. I'll show you what it is though. So I'm playing different colors, but I'm also trying to control like, but here's one that I could use, and can I make that even? So I don't want to just like do it. I want to use that to find my best sound right now on some amount of the range, right? And then I'm going to rest again, right? I would also do some slow lip slurs. They're really easy, and like mezzo piano or soft as you can play with a good sound, but you want to make sure you're moving air too. So if you need to play them loudly to ensure that, that's fine. Just don't do too much, because the louder you play, the more worn out you get fast. Ironically, it's also physically difficult to play soft for a long time, but the air is not doing it then. It's just the delicacy of it, right? So mezzo everything is good for your warm-up on these days. Now, you're also not going to play your pieces over and over, right? You don't need to play through your whole audition again and again so that you're ready to go. That's the biggest mistake I see, especially high school people and early college. If they have time to play, right? So if they have unstructured time that's leading up to a concert or an audition, they will play and play and play. They won't stop playing, and then they'll go on stage and they'll have no face left, right? Don't be that guy. Don't do it. We've all done it, but don't do it. You need to play. What do you need to play? Well, guess what? Exactly what you've practiced. So I'll show you by doing on this, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to play the small chunks. I'm not going to do a run through. I'm just going to practice the little pieces that I always need to practice. I'm going to put those in place. I'm going to sing. If I really want to do a run through, I'm going to sing it. Personally, I don't even play it one time through. I don't play the whole audition. When I was in college, my auditions were about 25 minutes long, and it was like a mini recital. And I played the hardest thing. I wanted to win, so I played the hardest thing I could play. Guess what? I can't play the hardest thing I can play twice in a row, right? Because it's the hardest thing I can play. So I just didn't play before my auditions. I almost went in totally cold. I would just do a little, and I just go and try to hit it. I did pretty well. I was, I was lucky also a lot that things didn't go really poorly for me. But you don't. In other words, you don't want to be too warmed up, and you certainly don't need to play all your material. So I'm just going to hit the spots that I know are going to go badly if I don't, and I'm not going to play it through, but I am going to sing it through, and then we'll simulate. I'm going in the room, and I'm playing. And maybe I'll talk to you before that because I have a couple more things on the day of that'll help, and then we'll do the playthrough. Okay. I'm getting a little sticky second valve. I anticipated that I would not have to talk about this, but a lot of people will oil their valves right before they go in so that they have the best valves. Only do that if it's already sticking. If it's not sticking on you right now, you don't need to oil your valves. That might make them stick more. You move some gunk around in there, sometimes it's bad. And I have done that. I did that for years where I had been told, oil your valves right before you go in. And so I did, and I had valve sticks. What that means is you need to clean your trumpet more often. That's all there is to it. If you need to oil your valves because they're sticking, you need to clean them. Now, I've been recently told you should oil your valves every day, no matter what. Yeah, sure. I don't do it because, I don't know, waste valve oil if you don't need to, but hey, that's a great way to keep things consistent too, right? So I think I probably should do that. I just haven't ever done it. And I'm probably tearing up my horns more than I need. So, okay. What are the last things? Well, we didn't play it over and over. We played the spot over and over until we got it, felt good about it. I sang a little bit instead. So just the small chunks. What we're trying to build, like I said, is confidence, right? So if I do that and then I play it and it always goes well, I've done it, and all I'm doing is going into the room and doing what I do every day, right? That's what you want. You want to have practiced the audition, so to speak, but also the moments before the audition. And that doesn't mean that you literally practice it, although that is a very good idea that I'll get to. It means that you've thought through the process and you've decided what things add up to a successful result for you, and then you are going to do just exactly those things in that order and nothing else on that day. You can talk about other things like hydration and sleep and whatever, but a lot of times those are not your choice. If you're moving into a new environment. You're a first year in college, and you didn't even know there was an audition that day, and now you're freaking out, and you can't get any sleep because you have a roommate now. You never had a roommate before, and everybody wants to stay up talking, and so yes, try to control for those things, but they're a little bit outside the scope of this talk. But what you should do is, up until then, right, you might be at home all summer practicing your stuff, or all December break. Play for anybody who will listen, and do real mock, like walk in the room, put them behind a screen if you need to, play for them, walk out of the room. They're not going to clap, right, because it's an audition. And then maybe go in and ask for their feedback if you want it, or don't. Doesn't actually really matter. I mean, if they give good feedback, then that's valuable. But all that really matters is you played for somebody, and play for the person who will make you the most nervous. You can start with play for your dog and play for your parakeet, play for the birds, but then you need to move up to something, right? Play for your dad, play for your mom, play for your brothers and sisters, play for the neighbors, play for the person that you have strong emotional romantic feelings for, but you haven't talked to yet, right? Like, that's the worst, right? It's like, oh my God, this girl I like, and she doesn't know it yet, but she doesn't need to. Yeah, you don't have to have that talk, but call her on the phone and say, can you meet me at such and such a place so I can play my audition for you? I promise it'll only help your chances romantically, but more importantly, you are going to be the most nervous for that person. So then when you go in your audition for these old, probably men, unfortunately, that are behind the panel, you're like, they can't even see me, I don't care. And then you play, right? So just make yourself nervous in those ways. And it has to be practical. You can't just run up and down the stairs. That makes you physically in a similar state, but why not just simulate it by doing it, like actually, right? So that's what I would suggest. So if I practiced, I deserve confidence, right? And I did practice. And so now I'm going to sing it once more. Because let's say I'm in an area of the school that I can't just play and play and play anytime I want. I'm maybe out in the hallway waiting for my turn. Somebody else is going. So I'm going to sing it for you, and then I'm going to play it as if I just walked in the room, and we'll see how it goes for me. I didn't practice this enough, but we can at least simulate some of the aspects. And you've heard how it's going, so, place your bets down in the comments. Is Gabriel going to win the audition, or is he going to fall flat on his face? Let's see. Dum 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 ba-dum ba-dum dum dum da-yi da-yi dum 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 ba-dum ba-dum da ba-dum dum 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 da-dum 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 dum 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 da-dum ba-da-da-da-da-da-da da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. Not great at that spot, but I got off pitch and then I didn't know what to do, so maybe it'll be okay. Anyway, okay, that person just came out and, oh man, I hope you did great. You sounded good in there. Okay, it's my turn, and I walk in. And now I'm starting to get nervous a little bit, but remember, I practiced. I've done this before, so I don't have any reason to be nervous. I'm just going to breathe, take a deep breath. Think about what am I trying to convince these people? I want to sound good and I want to play musically. Everything else is already done, but I have to think about the sound I want and the music I want to make. And I've done this 1,000 times before, so here we go. Is what you say to yourself, not I've done. I mean, I have done it 1,000 times before, but you say that to yourself. I've done this 1,000 times myself before. I've practiced this. I deserve confidence, and here's the music, and here's the music I want to make over the sound that I like the best for me. Right? That's what you want, and then you execute. Okay, so pretty good. In the middle there, I got a little distracted. I started thinking about how you guys can see how far over the buttons my fingers go, and that's not sometimes everybody's favorite position. I like it though. And then I got distracted and I almost missed a note. I think I did fine though. And so yeah, let me know. Did I win the audition? Did I lose? What's your opinion? But yeah, that's the gist of it. Is if you practice the right way, you've never really made a mistake. So then you have supreme confidence about, I know how this is going to go. It always goes well for me, right? And when you get nervous, you have to have some techniques. Deep breathing, focus on what's important, right? It's not important if you win this audition. It's just not. There's going to be another audition. And, somebody else might win it because they're just at a different place than you. That's not your fault. You played the best you could, right? You don't want to involve hope in the equation at any level if possible. Hope is not a bad thing. It's just a last ditch effort thing, right? It's when you have nothing left that you hope. And hope, if you didn't practice and you hope it goes kind of well, that's an obvious, that's not a good place to be in. But even when you really practiced and you hope you beat somebody else, well, you either will or you won't. It's not going to help you to hope. It's going to help you to execute what you practiced really, really well. And somebody else might have practiced something different that's also good, and the committee might just prefer them for the certain ensemble or whatever. And that's back to what we talked about before. If the wind ensemble director likes a certain sound, then that person's going to pick sounds that fit with that, right? And it's okay if your sound isn't that. Maybe it's a better fit for the orchestra because the orchestra director is hearing something slightly different for their ensemble, right? So you can't control that. You can think about what they're listening for and try to make sure that those things are very, very good and appropriate. And in the same way that style, you have to play with a good resonant sound, but your version of that might be different than somebody else's, and they might prefer one to another, and you can't control any of that. So don't bother. Don't get in your head about all that stuff. And you can't hope of course everybody wants to be in the top ensembles, right? But it's great to be at the bottom of the lowest ensemble because you don't have to practice the ensemble music and you don't have high stakes stuff to do. You can really work on your trumpet playing all day, every day, because there's no problem in ensemble. You don't have to be on it, right? So there's value to being in every part of the section. And it's not just oh, it's easy for me down here. But sometimes the hardest part's the lowest part. Or maybe you need to work on your low range, but you're the best high note trumpet player, so they keep putting you in first. Well, I'm not saying tank an audition, but it doesn't matter where you end up because you're going to have a good time learning to play the trumpet better and learning the literature, right? And okay, you might not get the solo, but everybody deserves a chance to get the solos sometimes, right? So you can't think about it as what do I want to win with this? You do want to just do the best you can and you go for the win. But if you end up second place or third place or last place or whatever, okay, you still went in and you executed the best thing you could do. That's all you can do. Now, why that can be hard because you can really get in your head about all those things, all those details, because you have nothing to do out in the hallway. So there's this little window that most people don't really talk about very much because, well, it doesn't seem that significant, but it can really make or break your mental state. And that is the 15, 20 minutes before you go in the room, but after you've done all the playing you want to do, where you're just chilling out in the hall, literally freezing your chops out. And my answer is just distract yourself, right? Set a timer so that you know that timer's going to go off when it's your time to go in the room. And then you can just read a book. Or I know way back, Chris Martin used to talk about listening to comedy shows on his headphones. Some people listen to podcasts these days, right? Just anything to get your mind off of what you're about to do so that you're not really using your mental energy, certainly not using it spooling up all the could-be's and wish I could have and hopes and dreams and mistakes and all the things that going over that's a nightmare. And it takes a lot of energy. And then you're brain dead when you go out into the audition. Instead, something that's super light. something funny. That's what, like I said, comedy. Something that you can read casually that doesn't take a lot of like intense brain power. Just the newspaper sometimes. Doing a crossword even for some people is like it's a different part of their brain, so it doesn't cost them as much. I just think about the music personally. I have sort of obsessive, so I think through perfect versions of my audition over and over again, and that's fun for me. It's not nerve-wracking like it might be for some people. I just think about the music and how much I love it, and enjoying it is, I'm going to get to do that in front of other people in a second, right? So I'm getting excited about that opportunity by having like mental run-throughs of how it went well over and over again. And sometimes I can psych myself out with that, but and then in that case I just think about nothing. And I don't know about you, but I can just turn my brain off and just go click. It's time for the void of empty space, and that's all I'm going to think about, right? I can't do that for very long, but I can do it for 20 minutes. I could do it for 10 minutes, whatever it is left over. So I didn't see anybody come on. Nobody asked any questions that I saw, but thanks to Thomas and Ithaca Trumpet Studio for requesting this. I'm sorry the beginning was soft. I tried to get on as fast as I could when I got home from work because I didn't know if perhaps your auditions are tomorrow like ours are, and you needed this information as quickly as possible. So I didn't want to wait any longer, but if you do have questions, email me. Don't email the TikTok Trumpet Prof because I never check that, but email, just find my email at ECU or GabrielVincentDiMartino@gmail.com is fine too if you know how to spell it. You can also check my beacons, which has all those links to them, and that is beacons.ai/TPTPROF. That's Trumpet Prof to you. So email me your questions because I really will do just exactly this as soon as I possibly can. And also, if you're watching this stream and you're thinking like, I would love to interact live, but I can't because it's not at a time, I need to change the time. This is not a good time for me most days rather. And the most of the times that would be good for me right now, I think might not be good for anybody else. So I would love and sort of informal poll if you guys would tell me either in the comments here or in an email, when is a good time for you to watch a live stream about trumpet and interact with it? Because I would like to change it to a time that is possible. And I've heard from a couple of people that I've asked already, but the more the merrier. And I can also move it around so that I do your topic on a day that you can watch it. So I would love to make this more interactive and not just like ideas I had in the 10 minutes before it was time to stream. Okay, well that's it for now. I don't think it's a wise idea for me to sight read more of this etude for you, and I actually have some dentition work to do, so I think I'm just going to turn off the stream. I would love to show you that work and just have like a question and answer while I'm doing like stuff on my teeth, but it's controversial enough that I'd rather not hear from all of my professional colleagues that don't think I should do that. Because I posted a video on how to do it. So I won't show you that for now, but maybe someday. Anyway, sayonara. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. See you next time.